it's terrible to say this. I don't want to be immodest, but I don't think so. I don't think that there was any particular. I mean, there are lots of experiments that failed, but I don't think they failed because they were foolish to do necessarily. So I don't think so. It's there's been a lot of talk about doing science in different ways. The fox and the hedgehog. You familiar with that? Well, the hedgehog says, "Hey, this is an interesting place," and digs and digs and digs and digs and never leaves that place, and so has a very narrow kind of a approach, and therefore comes up with a lot of interesting data, but it's very narrow. And then there's the fox who says, "Hey, this is an interesting area," digs a little bit, this is interesting, oh, there's another area, and so on. And there are a lot of people who do that kind of research, and sometimes they have a greater sense of perspective and so can recognize whole new areas that those of us who are digging in the same hole all the time don't see. And I certainly have been more of the hedgehog than the fox. I think the Nobel laureates tend to be foxes rather than few exceptions, including some of the ones who've worked out a particular technique. You know, it's like the ultracentrifuge and electrophoresis. People got Nobel Prizes for that. But I didn't regret that. It's one way of doing science. They're both good ways of doing science, and it's good to be aware of what the foxes find is interesting, but it's also important to have some people who really work in depth in certain areas. So I never regretted that, really, but some people would say that was a deficiency.
So at no period in your career did you run with the foxes?
Not really, no. I mean, I thought I was working on a pretty major problem, and that is how do antibodies work? How does the immune system work? What is one of, and so in that sense, it was a broad conceptual problem, but I approached it by doing an in-depth exploration of one system.